Hello. Hi. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here. It's great to see all of you here tonight. We'll get started. I'm Ksenia Gerstein. I'm the Curator of Modern and Contemporary Art here at the Ulrich. And it is my great pleasure and honor to introduce tonight Louise Rosenfield and Garth Johnson, as our speakers in conjunction with the exhibition over in Amsterdam Baron, Clay Currents, the Wichita National Ceramics Invitational. I'll go in order and I'll introduce, and I think you guys are going to speak in this order too, Louise and then Garth, is that right? Okay. So by her own account, Louise is a Dallas, Texas potter who enjoys playing with clay and making functional vessels for daily use. She's also a founding organizer of the Dallas Pottery Invitational, an annual show and sale whose mission is to widen public knowledge about the breadth and depth of functional ceramics today. She currently serves as a member of the Board of Trustees of the Everson Museum of Art in Syracuse, New York, which is renowned for its exceptional ceramics collection, and on the board of the Archie Bray Foundation for the Ceramic Arts in Helena, Montana, a nonprofit that hosts a renowned residency program for ceramicists. With her husband, David, Louise is also an extraordinary collector of functional pottery. She owns around 3,000 pieces by over 500 contemporary artists. Am I getting the numbers right? These pieces are available for viewing and study by the public at www.rosenfieldcollection.com, and I urge you to visit that site to see amazing work both by artists who are represented in Clay Currents and a great many others. Garth Johnson is the Paul Phillips and Sharon Sullivan Curator of Ceramics at the Everson Museum of Art in Syracuse, as well as a studio artist, writer, and educator. He has exhibited his own work and published his writing nationally and internationally, including contributions to the recent books Repositioning Paula Soleri, The City is Nature, which explored the work of the visionary Arizona architect and artist, and the catalog Victor Sikansky, did I say that right? The Gardener's Universe, published to complement this year's exhibition of the sculptor's work. His book, 1,000 Ideas for Creative Reuse, was published in 2009 and presents a collection of the most inventive work being made with reused, upcycled, and already existing materials. Garth is a self-described craft activist who explores craft's influence and relevance in the 21st century. Some of his older, I think it's not super active, but irreverent and very amusing musings can be found on his blog, Extreme Craft, which bills itself as, and I quote, a compendium of art masquerading as craft, craft masquerading as art, and craft extending its middle finger. So I also urge you to check out Extreme Craft. We're delighted to have Louise and Garth with us here tonight to put our current ceramics exhibition in the larger context of the many exciting things happening with ceramics and craft even more broadly today. And without further ado, I'll hand the podium over to Louise.
I'm going to need a little technical, is advancing the slide, just push the spacebar. Okay, we'll try it in a minute. So thank you all for being here tonight, wanting to listen to me talk. I would like to say a couple of words about the Everson. The Everson Museum of Art in Syracuse, New York, was the first museum in the United States to decide to collect strictly American art. No European masterpieces in that collection. And then several years later, they made the decision to start collecting ceramic art. And this was in the early 1900s. And in the 1960s, they decided to collect video art. So they were the first museum to decide to make video part of their permanent collection. The building is I.M. Pei's first museum. So the Everson Museum of Syracuse, New York, which is the local museum for the Syracuse area, really plays a huge role in the clay community because of their ceramics. And now they are thinking about adding to this IMPay building a cafe. So with Syracuse University, they have conducted an international architecture search for competition for an architectural firm to design the cafe. And I want to tell you that before I go through my whole spiel, and then Garth is going to come and give you a whole spiel, and I want you to know that about the Everson before we start talking. Yes?
Could you spin your microphone more towards your mouth?
Is this better? Okay. Please let me know if I am not able to be understood. I live in a house with 2 kitchens. My husband and I, his name is David, and we were told by an architect who was trying to design a remodel for us that we just can't share. This is my kitchen. This is actually 1/4 of my kitchen. So in my kitchen, things don't have to be put away. I like stuff on the countertops. I like to see where everything is. I don't have to go scrounging through cabinets to see where things are. Things don't get lost, stuck in the back of somewhere. And this is what we call the butler's pantry. This is where the serving pieces are for most of the fancy occasions we have at our house. And you can see it's just piled full of dishes. And I know those of you out there who are either ceramic makers or collectors like me have spaces that probably look like this. This is what the sink looks like when I have my drawing group over for a potluck lunch. And what I'd like you to notice here is that the sponges are in a vessel made by John Gill. There's no hierarchy of use of vessels in my house. But there's more. So this is where the cups with handles and my husband David's rice bowls live. Every morning for breakfast, he has brown rice and vegetables, so he has a series of bowls that he goes through. Back in my kitchen, he keeps his teapots. He drinks green tea every day, and he uses a different teapot every day of the week, so he's got 7 teapots all the time. But there's more. So here's more serving pieces that live in the cabinet, and there's more, because across the kitchen, there's the plates and the bowls that he doesn't use for rice, and also the cups without handles. But there's more. Here's more serving pieces and the butter dishes and baskets. But there's more. Here's the salt and pepper shakers and the gravy boats. But there's more. This is the bar. And you can see we think that drinking should be an active part of everybody's life. This is what David's kitchen looks like. What I'd like for you to notice there is where his wooden spoons are. That is a vessel made by Jamie Walker, who's a professor of art at University of Washington, who would never, ever in his right mind want to see one of his sculptures filled with wooden spoons. This is my side of the bathroom. But luckily, I have a lot of handmade pots, so it looks like this now, thankfully. So what I'd like to talk to you next about is why I have all these handmade pots in my house. When I started making pots and thinking about functional art, I started thinking about my own environment. And I came to the conclusion that I only wanted to make functional work because it plays a much more active role in our own environments. So I think everybody in this room is an art lover, otherwise you wouldn't be here. And so we all have paintings and sculpture of some kind. But what I decided was that a painting comes into your environment and you hang it on the wall. It's a static location and you love it, you hang it there, you walk by it every day. For the first number of times you look at it, you admire it, you feel so good about what you got and how beautiful it looks. And then over the months and years, it becomes part of the unseen. You just take it for granted. It's like it's not there. And same way with sculpture, pretty much. You use your eyes, but because sculpture is installed in a static location, and it just inhabits that location. Eventually, it becomes part of the unseen in your environment. Unlike functional art. Functional art, let's take a cup for example, uses all the senses. You not only see it like you do a painting or a sculpture, but you have to touch it. And if it's a cup, and you're pouring something in it, you have to hear the sound of the food, and you have to feel it when you taste it or you smell it. So all your senses are involved. And to me, the collaboration that each person makes with functional art in their own environment is much more exciting. You can do that on a daily basis. And the collaboration that you made with your painting or sculpture, you did it once. You figured out where it was going to go and how beautiful it was going to look there, and then you were done. So functional art is very important to me, and now I would like to show you how I use functional art. So this is my birthday pie. My pottery teacher made a micaceous pie plate so it could go in the oven, the pie could bake in it, and then I could have pie. And for Thanksgiving, I have a girlfriend and I go to her house. She gets out her Southern Living cookbook recipe and we bake pecan pie together, and we have a competition to see who can make the best display of pecans on the top of the pie. And then here it is from another year, baked and served on a nice pie stand. This is how we present fruit so that nobody has to dig at the bottom of the fruit bowl. All the fruit's on the top. Here is your caprese salad that it's deconstructed caprese salad, so you can decide what to put on your plate. And you can see the handmade plates in the background. We make a lot of cakes in our house. This is the handmade, from scratch, angel food cake, all the eggs separated, and in the back you can see the custard sauce. Carrie Radash made the cake plate, and Gary Hatcher made the bowl that the custard sauce is in. David and I always have a big discussion after the cake is on the cake plate, and I say, now we've got to put it on the way back of the counter so the dog won't get it. That was the strawberry cake where she licked the icing off of one side without damaging the cake. But here's a cake on a Deborah Schwarzkopf cake plate that, was perfect. We finally figured out where to put it where she couldn't get it. And this is what the strawberry cake looks like on the cake plate. It's in the back kitchen because my countertops are deeper than David's in the front kitchen. And but look what happened anyway. We ate it. Here's on a sunshine cob. Now this piece can be used upside down or right side up. It's a cake plate upside down, and right side up it's a bowl of some kind, but again, we ate it. This is a cheese plate. That's a cheese and crackers, a nice combination pot by George Bose. He calls these pots polymorphous. because this is two separate pieces that can be used in several different ways. And I really like the way he thought about this work. Here's what it looks like empty, but the two pieces come apart. The outside piece was wood-fired, and the inside piece was reduction-fired. But that inside piece, if you turn it over like that, now the inside piece acts as a receptacle for water, and this can be an interesting flower brick. And here the inside piece now is acting as a stand, and so you have a floating fruit bowl. This is what Thanksgiving looks like at our house. We invite everybody to come over, and we all cook together because I have two kitchens. And when it's all done, we set up all the food, and it looks like this from the other side, so you can see all the handmade pots. The blue and white in the middle, that stack of plates, that is something called calamity ware. And if you don't know about it, look it up. It's very entertaining take on blue willow pattern, and it's got calamities all over it. It's very fun. This is, we take the group picture, so you can see all of us who cooked, and now we're getting ready to eat. And sometimes we have really large dinner parties. We can seat 40 people, and we have enough handmade pots so that everybody can have their own display. So while I was preparing for this talk, I came across an old photograph, and this was a photograph I'd taken, I don't know, 10 years ago or so. David and I had gone to Versailles, and in Versailles they have a lot of cases where you can, you know, they just have all the decorative objects that were in the castle. And I saw this pot that was marbled and had those delicate flowers, and the small print says Apt, which is the name of a French city, 1775. It's amazing. Well, I took this picture and I forgot about it. About 5 years ago, one of the faculty members at Southern Methodist University brought me this from Apt, but only 5 years ago. So I guess they've been making the same pot for 250 years. It's pretty amazing. He also bought me a cup and saucer. And the plate, I thought, just looked really great with this cinnamon bread, because the cinnamon bread looks so marble to me. So of course I wanted to make this collaboration. Here's a collaboration, oatmeal with blueberries in a bowl made by Carol Ann Furr, who's at Haystack. Here's me playing with my grilled cheese sandwich, Charlie Teft. Here's me playing with my eggs on a Cheung cloud. This is around, you know, the only time of the year we get candy corns is Halloween. So this is Priscilla Maritzen. I thought I had fun making that little collaboration. 2 ways to eat strawberries. First way, Matt Repsher. Second way, Sunshine Cobb. The vessel in the middle there is a little sculpture made by Lily Zuckerman. A few years ago, she worked on this body of work that was all about architecture and walls and pathways and dividing up spaces and ramps and little entrances. But all I could see was a vessel for grapes and olives and nuts and crackers. Here we are having a casual birthday party at home, and if you look, you can see on the table Jason Walker, Tyler Lotz, Matt Metz, Carrie Radash, Lynn Smizer-Bowers, and Sun Kuya from the other end of the table. Oh, and in the background you can see Mike Norman candle holder. So this, I just wanted to make my own tableau, just strictly playing with the pots. So I had this wonderful Sam Cheung bottle, and the cloud on the front just reminded me so much of a word bubble. I wanted to find some pot I had that could interact with it. I picked up this Liz Quackenbush flower brick, stuffed it with baby's breath, got out the wine and the cheese, and then an erasable pen, and I wrote on the vase, "I feel like less would be a bore." It was strictly for playing with my food. Functional objects, functional art also comes in stuff besides tableware. Here are some sinks that we brought back from Baja. And here's, of course, a lamp. Lots of people make lamps. This is a beautiful one that we have in our house. Now I'd like to talk to you about how I try and influence other people to love functional art as much as I do. Dallas, the Dallas Metroplex has over 7 million people in it, and 1.3 million live in Dallas itself. And the Dallas art scene is thriving. There's plenty of galleries. There's always a gallery walk. There's always an opening. A weekend doesn't go by that there are at least 5 or 6 art events going on. But it's a clay desert. So in 2008, Liz Lurie and Amy Halco and I established the Dallas Pottery Invitational. The idea was to try and present functional art in a way that would emulate an art gallery so that art lovers would feel comfortable and would see the upscale and fancy use of functional art. We, to try and broaden our group, because of course we know all the potters, we know all the artists, but how do we get these art people and architects and designers, interior designers who, select works for people's environments? So we are still doing this, but we actively seek out partners who want to participate and then help with the marketing. So this is like on Friday night, the Greg Ray Jazz Combo performs at our opening, and he brings all his music students and their families. And Loom Style is a group of weavers who last year for the first time made dish towels, because what do you need with functional art? You need dish towels, napkins, placemats, coasters. So they made items like that especially for our sale. And we partner with Houndstooth Coffee, a local coffee roaster who brings their espresso machine to our event. And if you buy a coffee cup, they'll put coffee in it, or you can buy their freshly roasted coffee. We have Lombardi Family Concepts that brings a wood-fired pizza oven to our event, and wood fires pizza, and potters and wood-fired pizza is something that goes together just kind of naturally, because a wood-fired pizza oven is basically a kiln. And then we also partner with Sage Blooms, which they are a high-end floral company that I'm going to tell you more about in a minute. But they come, and when they are there, if you buy any vessel that holds water, they will put an arrangement in it for you. So it doesn't matter. It could be a little tiny dish this big, but they'll have something they can put in it for you. This is what our display looks like. So this is Friday night before the event opens, and you can kind of see the artists get to pick if they want their table coverings to be black or white. And I think you can see a white one in the way back, but everybody else is black. And then we give them uniform risers so that all the tables look uniform and we think quite elegant. And so this is kind of how the room looks like without the people in it, which I kind of like it this way to see all the pots. The table in the front is Brooks Oliver. The first table I showed you was Gisele Hicks. Okay, I'm from Texas. This is the border wall. Now I'm going to talk to you about sage blooms. So they come to the Dallas Pottery Invitational, but I work with them on another basis because they only sell high-end flowers and they only present them in handmade vessels. So it's either clay or glass, and their customers are mostly people like me or offices, professional offices. So I'm lucky I get to be their personal shopper, and sometimes I give them vessels just to try so that they can see a difficult vessel and be challenged trying to make an arrangement for it. So this is Sam Cheung vessel, very similar to the one in the other room. I was really surprised. I was telling somebody he made these mountain vessels in honor of his father, who passed away after his father passed away. Because usually he was doing clouds, and now he did this series of mountains. I thought they were quite elegant. So Sage Blooms made this arrangement, and then a different week they did this, and every shot represents a week. So I think they got pretty successful in collaborating with this vessel. Here's a really complicated vessel by David Eichelberger. It's hand-built. And they were able to collaborate with this vessel in a way where it could sit in a corner or extend and throughout a whole table. This is a lovely collaboration between Brooks Oliver that I made. I took my Brooks Oliver vase, combined it with my Peter Biesecker plate, because I thought the vase would look good on the glass table if it had a plate under it. And then Sage Blooms added the flowers. And then here they got a totally different look from the same pot. These are, Sage Blooms calls these the pills. Brooks Cashin, who graduated from Alfred University last year, made these, and I insisted that Sage Blooms always design flowers to show them together. This is Perry Haas. He's got, monumental vessels in the other room, but in my house, I have Perry Haas one way. This is the summer version and the winter version. And I thought these berries were so amazing, so I'll just give you a close-up of how incredible they look. And what I loved about both those arrangements is the colors from both of them really picked up the colors that were in the vessel. This is George Bowes. I was going to leave this slide out because I'm not showing this work, but I loved the arrangement so much. I thought it really looked excellent in this flower brick. But I had a vessel from George that I thought the Sage Blooms would really find more interesting collaborations with all the negative space from all the handles. It's got 5 or 6 handles, I guess 1, 2, 3, 4, probably 5 handles on the outside. And they did this, and this, and these two, and these. Here is a vase that I have that Brooks Oliver made, and I bought it at the Dallas Pottery Invitational. Sage Blooms had put those flowers in it, and I said, I just want it like this, and I want you to make that arrangement in my house every single week. So that's called hanging Heliconia, and to me it looks like arms with hands at the bottom, and I think it just picks up the hanging Heliconia just picks up the marks from the backs of my dining room chairs. So I just thought it was remarkable. So that was my plan for that. But hanging Heliconia isn't available all the time. So they had to figure out some other ways. This is a pot by Lauren Mabry. She is a designer. She does not, her pots are full when they're empty. She does not want anything in them. Ha ha ha. This is a very diminutive Sam Harvey basket, and the flower arrangements that they made really gave it a big presence. Sunshine Cobb. I thought that this vessel is a very casual vessel, and those flowers just look like they were picked up out of the field. It's just a lovely collaboration there. And here's another one, just a really small little, like a sherbet dish that they filled with flowers that look like they just been picked up out of a wildflower field. Here's John Gill, because he always makes such colorful vessels that are usually askew in one way or another. So I thought that would be challenging, but they just colored it right back. These are aspen trees. I'm sure you guys know that. And aspen trees have eyes. And I became conscious of this because I'm a Texan. We are required to go to Colorado every summer when it gets too hot in Texas. And so I see aspen trees all over Colorado, but the eyes are particularly pronounced in Crested Butte. So in aspen, they're little tiny eyes, but in Crested Butte, they're really big and they are looking at you. When I saw this work, the following slide, work by Hee Soo Lee, I thought, she's looking at the same things I am. Two sizes. This is Mark Ferris one way and another way. Carrie Smith one way and another way. And that's my husband David in the background. Doug Casebeer. So I noticed this exact same vase, only with a different, not the amber celadon, but another surface is in the other room, and here's the collaboration in my house. Liz Quackenbush. So this is also a two-part vessel. It's got a platinum lustered oval bowl that sits inside the white and gold lustered wall. I thought this vessel would be the most challenging for sage blooms. Rebecca Chappell made this. You can see it's got two necks, it's got gold wings, it's up off the ground a little bit, but I think they were really successful. This is Gisele Hicks, and I just thought this was so sweet. I think this was at a baby shower. And Mike Helke, who makes really wacko, bright-colored work, but he also makes some very quiet work. And I think this was my favorite of all the flower arrangements that I've shown you. This is Chris Bertie. He sculpts his work out of bricks. And when I saw these pants at Ensika, I thought, oh my gosh, I can see the big dinner party with salt cellars. I can have matching pants just down the table, salt cellars, it'll be perfect. And before I had a chance to do that, Sage Bloom said, we have a construction company that wants some flowers, and we can't really do a bunch of flowers, but if we could have the pants, that would just be perfect. And so they live in a construction company now. When I have all these pots, we've remodeled the kitchen, we've moved into 2 kitchens, and I started feeling like having all these pots wasn't really fair to just keep them all to myself. And I thought it would be a really good idea to figure out another way to share them. David wasn't so sure, so when we were at dinner with some ceramic department faculty members, he waited till a lull in the conversation and said, when does this collecting stop? When can it stop? When is enough? And they looked at him and said, no, it should never stop, and you should document this, and you should make a website. You should figure out how to do this. So that's when the Rosenfield Collection was born. And I have some cards up here that I made, and if you want to come get one, they have the website on the back, and then on the front, 50 different images. Every card has a different image, and you can pick one that appeals to you. So this is what the Rosenfield Collection looks like. The room is 40 feet long, it has 10-foot high ceilings, and it's 8 feet wide. And where I'm standing, if I turn around the other way, that's the photo setup. So I wanted for these pots to be seen not just in profile, but I don't think people looking get enough information from just the profile. So if you see, every pot is packed in its own box, and the box has a label, kind of an inventory label, and then there's a photograph of the pot that's in the box, so you don't have to go through a bunch of stuff opening it up. And then the shelves are numbered, and so we have a spreadsheet with an inventory number and the location of the box. So we can find any of the 2,700 pots that are currently on the website. If you go to the rosenfieldcollection.com, this is what you get. About the collection, and then across the top of the screen, you can look at the collection several ways. It's cross-referenced, so by artist, by form, by type of firing, or by technique. And I find the firing and technique categories aren't that interesting, but I wanted to show you quickly what happens if you click on, like, artists. So you get several pages of artists in alphabetical order by first name, and let's say you want to click on any artist. So any artist who has their picture, we have linked their information, their website or whatever they wanted to put. An artist that has just a picture of a pot, we don't have their information. They haven't provided it to us. So let's pick Adam Field. Adam Field provided us his Facebook and his Instagram link and his website and a bio, and then the pot that we have in our collection that belongs to him. Now, these images, you can take them. They are public images. You can just slide them off onto your computer. But if you want a high-quality image, you just hit the download button. So the first image is the profile. And the second image, which if you just saw the profile, you wouldn't see the lovely color that's on the inside of this, and you wouldn't also see the subtle decoration that's in there. But if you didn't see the bottom, this is what you would miss, which is more than half of the decoration on the pot. So that's why it was very important to me to have multiple images available. So, like we just saw Adam Fields, this is Julia Galloway's artist page, and I have a lot more pots of hers in my collection. This is like the first page of, I think there's 3, but we'll look at just this little picture, and you see this vessel took 5 views to get it all, so that you could see the bottom. You can see how she treated the bottom of her pots, that she doesn't leave them just blank and empty, and the inside. Okay, so now here's all the forms, and I'll just go through the forms really quick. I have the inventory numbers are B for bowl, C and S for cream and sugar, C for cup, cup and saucer, ewer, jar. Other thing, I have volunteers. No, they're not volunteers. They are part-time employees. I have part-time employees, and sometimes they don't know what something is. And so when they don't know what it is, they just call it other. So I have a category for other. Plates, pitchers, servingware, teapots, and vases. So if you click on bowls, you get profiles. But if you clicked on one of those, you would get the same view as we did from the artist page. Here's cups and saucers page, the ewer page, jar page, other. So that includes candle holders and olive dishes and soap dishes and spoons. Here's plates. Now, the thing with plates is you really need to see more than the top of the plate. So I'm going to select this pot by Michael Klein, this plate, to show you why. And here is the plate. And you get an idea of, imagine in your mind what you think this plate looks like if you were holding it in your hand, and how it would feel to you. So there's the front, and there's the back. Now that still could inform, but I don't think seeing the front and the back doesn't really change how you can imagine this would feel in your hand. But then you look at the profile and you see it has this giant thick edge and it floats off the table. And if you didn't see the profile, you would be missing this information. Here's the pouring vessels, teapots, and here's the vases. So my favorite Liz Quackenbush flower brick, which is a hedgehog. Here's what the hedgehog looks like. Now, if you hit the download button and you get the high quality image, it really gives you a lot of good information about, you know, how she used the cobalt stain to show shadows on the front of that hedgehog's face. And if you download the bottom, you can see how she didn't leave this empty. She really cared about how it was going to look to people who were using it, because when it's in use, nobody can see the bottom. It is strictly there as a surprise gift to the owner. And the top, so you want to get a really good idea of what those holes are about. And here you can really see. So all these images are free to take. They require no copyright. No, you don't have to say where you got, give credit. They're just there for students and people who are interested in learning more. So I want to talk to you just a minute about the title of our talk, Curious Vessels, and why curious? Curious to me, this is about the artists in the show. It's about being inquisitive and being interested, and most artists who make really the functional art that I love are trying to solve a problem. They're telling themselves a story, or they have a mission that they're trying to solve. And this list of synonyms is all about the pots that appeal to me. And I could use every single one of those for any of the works in my collection. This is Garth. This is a picture of Garth at work. He has artistic children. And the next picture is also of the Everson. And now I'd like to turn it over to Garth.
how does one follow that? So, it's customary for a speaker to get up and to flatter one's audience, and I really do have to say that this is an audience that I wish that I could take home with me. I'm sitting here, and Louise is showing all of these gorgeous pots, and a lot of us are here because pottery is something that is personal, it is visceral, it is functional, and it involves us on an emotional level. But from slide to slide, Louise is clicking through things, and I hear, oh, and some sighs, and I was really starting to feel like I was transported into the I'll have what he's having moment from When Harry Met Sally. Okay, so I knew what I was dealing with when I knew that I would have to be following Louise and this amazing cavalcade of pleasures that she showed. So I'm going to talk about the Everson, and I'm going to promote my own institution a little bit, but I knew that I wouldn't be able to compete on an aesthetic level. So since we're in a higher learning setting, I'm going to talk a little bit about the life skills that come along with the crazy people who do take on ceramics as a medium. So this is the Everson. Louise mentioned that 1968, it was the first museum ever built by the architect I.M. Pei, and he just passed away about 4 months ago. And when he passed away, the New York Times put out an article of his 5 most pivotal buildings. And these articles come out all the time, and I caught this article just as it hit my app on the New York Times app on my phone. And I remember picking it up, getting ready to be really angry, because the Everson is one of his greatest masterpieces. But to my delight and surprise, the New York Times listed the Everson as his 2nd most pivotal building in its whole career. So Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, Louvre edition, neither of them were there, but the Everson was. So it's an architectural masterpiece. You can faintly see the texture that's on the outside of this concrete building. Every bit of that texture was made by using bush hammers and sort of jackhammering the texture into the building in these stripes. And it's a building that you have to experience for yourself. I've really been thinking lately about Louise, and you just got to see Louise as a force of nature talking about starting the Dallas Pottery Invitational and talking about her approach to functional art. But Louise, I think, is indicative of the personality that comes with ceramic art. Louise and I both have backgrounds as makers, and I think that that's a good way to decode our missions in life. And so every action, every small action that Louise has seems to deal and lead to bigger and bigger consequences. So about 8 years ago, Louise joined the board of the Everson, and that is a terrific act of serving an amazing museum, because at the time, because of the Everson's leadership, the Everson had gone for about 25 years without having a director who really understood the ceramics collection or got what ceramics was about. It had been over 20 years since the Everson had had a ceramics curator. So Louise joined the board after several years of sort of tugging at the sleeves of the board and of the director. An amazing project was launched that documented the collection and documented the amazing history of the Ceramic Nationals, which I'll talk in a moment about. And when a new director came in, Louise really took that director by the hand, and that director is Elizabeth Dunbar, who started one of her earliest career moves was as a curator here at the Ulrich. So the Ulrich is in ways embedded into the Everson's DNA. Louise really took Elizabeth by the hand and introduced her to the ceramics world, talked to her about ceramics in the direct and visceral way that you just heard her talk about ceramics. And that led to Elizabeth helping to formulate with the board a plan to open up a new ceramics gallery at the Everson. to eventually bring in a ceramics curator, me. I'm so happy. The Everson is truly ceramics Mount Olympus. And through all of that, they were able to bring in a local donor. So I was introduced as the Paul Phillips and Sharon Sullivan Curator of Ceramics. Here is Dr. Paul Phillips and his wife, Sharon Sullivan. And because of the resurgent activity at the Everson, they decided to make a gift to the Everson of almost $5 million to support ceramics. It endows my position and makes sure that it's a position that a capricious director can never take away. It endows the ceramics gallery, and it makes sure that ceramics have a place at the Everson's table going into the future. And this is all because of the small act of Louise deciding to join the Everson board and taking on that service. So small actions, small acts of service can definitely grow and be magnified. And I have Louise to thank for all of that. Here's a photograph of our new ceramics gallery at the Everson. So show of hands, how many of you have actually been to the Everson in Syracuse? Okay, a few people. Everyone else, after I talk it up, is going to be, on a flight and coming to visit during the summer, please. But the Everson's amazing collection, about 1,500 of the pots, were crammed into our basement for about 25 years, 30 years, and that gallery sat unchanged. And so we now have this glorious I Am Pei gallery that I am charged with changing every 6 months. So something new will always be afoot at the Everson. We're working on solo exhibitions, and I'll talk at the end a little bit about the ultimate revolution in clay at the Everson, which is a direct result of Louise and her collection. Very quickly, I could talk about this stuff all day. So there are two main reasons for the Everson's prominence within the ceramics community. I'm going to talk about the other reason in just a moment, but sort of the main reason is an exhibition that the Everson hosted from 1932 through 1972. And these are the Everson Ceramic Nationals. And the Ceramic Nationals they were a juried exhibition from artists all around the country, and every 10 years, artists all around the world who would fight tooth and nail, because this started in 1932, to send their very best work to the Everson, to compete against other artists. And today I got to see some of the collection of the Wichita Nationals, which is an incredible history as well. And it's a sister collection that enjoys an immense kinship with the Everson. One of the things that sets the Everson's National apart is that it wasn't something that was just broadcasting out of Syracuse for whoever might happen through Syracuse, but every year that we held the Ceramic National, we toured it to between 8 and 12 different museums. I think the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York has hosted the Everson Ceramic National. The San Francisco Museum of Fine Art, something like 80 museums across this country also share that DNA and have shown the Everson Ceramic Nationals. It didn't start out as much. This was the very first one in 1932. It's worth noting that one of the early sponsors was a casket company in Syracuse, and they loaned all of their cases that the caskets came in to put draperies over and to put the pieces in. So that's the dirty little secret lurking under the drapery. They gradually grew in stature and size. Some amazing pieces from Thelma Fraser Winter in the middle here. The Everson Ceramic Nationals ended in 1972. Honestly, I think it was probably time for them to end, because how do you compare a juried piece of, ephemeral, unfired clay against a piece of, amazing functional art? So that tradition ended, but we started other projects. Chiefly in 1976, Margie Hudo, who was our curator at the time, invited something like 15 fine artists who were part of the fine art world in New York, including Helen Frankenthaler, Larry Poons, Sir Anthony Caro, and invited them to Syracuse to work in ceramics. And it had amazing repercussions. Anthony Caro worked in ceramics for the rest of his life. All right. That's not what I'm here to talk about. I want you to come to the Everson. I want you to bask in our collection. But I want to talk about the fortitude issue and the character traits of the ceramic artist. So I'm going to start off by showing this video that talks a little bit about how the outside world perceives ceramic artists.
We're back with breaking news about clay and a huge stoneware showdown in Seattle. The entire pottery community got to be watching this. Speaking of which, what do we look forward to as we jolly around the wheel?
Gisele and I take a look at some pledge rookie potters, boys that take over their yields. I'm familiar with the high-octane subcasting techniques that studios around the country taking notice. And as always, we'll pick our glaze of the week.
Analysis on the league's biggest stories. Sunday NFL Countdown, 11 a.m. on ESPN, presented by MGM.
All right. So Louise showed that slide of one day you're cool, the next you're hoarding pottery. I showed this. Pottery is constantly the butt of jokes on TV, on the internet. Yet, if you go to any art center around the country, they're overflowing with people who want to take pottery classes. And I think this is one of the reasons. I think people are wanting to find ways to get back in touch with their hands. And the other, sitting in a fine art, or in a higher learning institution, is that pottery creates a certain sense of resiliency. So how many of you in this room, and I think I know the answer, are either potters, ceramists, or have even made a pinch pot or worked in clay at some point in school? Okay, I'm clearly speaking to the choir here. But this is the reason. If there had not been this incredible woman with her fortitude, Adelaide Alsop Robineau, the Everson would not have a ceramics collection. Louise would have not come on the board at the Everson, and all of our lives would be vastly different. So if you don't know about Adelaide Robineau, she is at the core of the Everson's mission, and she is among the greatest reasons for you to come visit us in Syracuse. And I encourage everyone to study her and find out more about her life, because she's a template for living and making work and soldiering on as an artist. So she worked around the turn of the century. Before the year 1902 or 1903, she worked as a china painter. So china painting was something that women of a certain stature of society were allowed to do or permitted to do when it came to ceramics. So taking a pre-made porcelain vessel, painting nice, well-mannered flowers on it, getting together with your friends and doing so and exhibiting them. Adelaide Robineau was a killer china painter. She started her own china painting magazine. She started her own Martha Stewart-like line of ceramic china painting supplies. She could have lived on as the Martha Stewart of the china painting world, raking in the money, but that wasn't what was at the core of her soul. So Adelaide Robineau wanted to control every facet of the pot's existence. She had her keen eye on the porcelain that was coming out of Europe at the turn of the century, which, if you're not hip on sort of Viennese and French porcelains of the turn of the century, they have volcanic glazes, they have incredible passionate colors, and they're really incredible and unrestrained, and this lit a fire within Adelaide Robineau. So she started taking pottery classes, and she started learning to throw pots, but she also learned to work in porcelain. So this is something that's really hard for us to grasp in the 21st century. Back in 1905, you couldn't just walk into your local pottery supply store and buy a bag of porcelain clay. Porcelain was something that strictly only existed with industry. Artists did not work in porcelain. So Adelaide Robineau wrote to an incredible French artist that she knew, a guy named Taxil Doat, and she asked him for his porcelain formula. He sent it to her. She translated it from the French to the English, translated the materials from the French to the English, tested it, and set about making a working clay just so she could make her own pots in porcelain. She was a modest woman. So here's a quote from her. Syracuse has at least two unique boasts to make. There is the salt, Syracuse has a history of being one of the centers of salt production in the United States, which gives it its savor, and there are the Robineau porcelains. So modesty was not one of her virtues. All right, so many of you are familiar with this. I'm so happy that I heard at least one of those "When Harry Met Sally" gasps when I put this up. So this is the scarab vase. This is the Mona Lisa of American ceramics. It was created in 1910. The scale is, it's about 16 inches tall. I want to impress upon you that Adelaide Robineau created this piece 7 years after she had thrown her first pot. I've been at it for something like 25, and I could never do this. And she did it with a porcelain that she devised and formulated, a real first for an artist. One of the reasons why this is such a famous vessel is this origin story of how it was created. So this thing was thrown in 3 sections. There's a lid, a body, and a base. It was thrown rather thickly out of porcelain, and it was dried to a bone-hard state. And every bit of decoration that you see here, including all of the piercing that goes all the way through this vase, was done when the vase was bone dry. There is no mold making, no flim-flammery, nothing fancy about the way that this thing was made. Sheer effort and sheer tenacity. It took 1,000 hours for Adelaide Robineau to create the scarab vase. And that's just the decoration. She puts the scarab vase in the kiln, and this is with the glaze on it. When it comes out of its glaze firing in the kiln, what do you think happened? Huge cracks. It didn't blow up. I like the sound effects. Huge cracks on the bottom. So I'm sure she had like a moment of some anger. She was a woman of passions. But did she just throw it on the floor and never make another thing? No. She calcined some kaolin. She got to work repairing it. And the exterior of the scarab vase upon the 3rd firing is what you see here. I'm going to show you something in a moment. Oh, this is Adelaide Robineau's magazine that she put out. It's called Ceramic Studio. You can actually find most of the issues online. And my favorite thing about Ceramic Studio are the advertisements, which they don't make ceramic advertisements like this anymore. Speaking of China, consider, good dame, consider. Comparisons are odious. So advertising copy could learn something from Adelaide Robineau. Yes, and the prices. Here she is working in her studio and with some of her compatriots. And here is something that I guarantee almost no people. I showed this only at speaking engagements. We will never put this image online. But here's the bottom of the scarab vase, and you can see some tiny residual crack. Brooks, not for social media. Your own. This is a secret special thing for this audience. Okay, so, but you can see the translucency. You can see the residual cracks. It is a thing of beauty. This is not me, by the way. This is someone else, but there is a whole genre of scarab vase porn that exists online with people doing When Harry Met Sally interactions with the scarab vase. So, yeah. I'm just about done, but I wanted to show you the current exhibition that is up at the Everson. This is highlighting, we are currently hosting, I think, the 3rd largest Yoko Ono retrospective to ever be mounted in the United States. Yoko Ono has a really interesting history with ceramics and uses it as a touchstone. But this exhibition pays tribute to artists who have used ceramics as a conceptual medium, and it includes artists like Ai Weiwei, Kazuo Shiraga of the Gutai movement, and chiefly, this might be the ceramic piece that means the most to me, and it's a photograph. This piece gets at the mystery and the community and the connection that is inherent every time you pick up a piece of clay. So this is the artist Gabriel Orozco. He had his retrospective at the Museum of Modern Art in New York, and this is one of his best-known pieces. It's called My Hands Are My Heart, and it's a simple image of him without a shirt on, gripping a piece of clay to his heart and opening it up to anyone who sort of comes across. And even though I am an immense fan of pottery, even though seeing Louise's collection evokes gasps and sighs of pleasure in me, it's this photograph that really gets at sort of all of the greater issues of ceramics as a medium that has the potential to bring people together and build bridges. All right, so that said, I'm going to end with just talking about one other thing that you can do on the internet, and this is a hashtag that you can follow on Instagram or FaceTag, hashtag ceramic casualties. So I guarantee that everyone who has worked in clay has dealt with failure. And if you enjoy the schadenfreude of seeing ceramic failure, and to know that people are dealing with adversity and soldiering on with this incredible material, this is the hashtag for you. So here's an average one. You can see this piece that this artist has maybe spent 10 or 15 hours on, and the cracks and the pinholes that have developed. We're going to go up in an order of magnitude here. So look at the amount of time that this artist has spent making this the underglaze imagery on this pot. I think this is a 50-gallon bucket of clay slip, which is wound up on the floor. And I think this might be my last one. One of the greatest ceramic casualties of them all. So, as ceramic artists, to recap, we are able to deal with adversity, which is one of the things that makes a ceramic artist a really dangerous and amazing human being to have on your side. Oh, okay, one last. Okay. Yes, that was the bottom of a kiln. All right, so I'm going to wrap it up. We've gone slightly over time, but I wanted to very quickly bring everything back to Louise. And I started off by talking about this simple act of generosity of joining the Everson's board that has led to all of the things that are going on now. Louise started her talk by talking about the cafe that's coming at the Everson. And this is a project, Louise is being very modest, but I don't have to, that has never been done in a museum, much less a restaurant before. So in our IMPA building, we have just hired an internationally prominent young design firm who's going to create a cafe within the Everson space. It will be kitted out with the 3,000 pieces from Louise's collection, which you, the public, will be able to come always, always, always. You can pick out a Warren Mackenzie cup and have a cup of coffee in a Warren Mackenzie cup. You can pick out and interact with all of the pieces from the Rosenfield collection as they were intended by the artists and as they were intended by Louise, with food on them. So this is going to have some interesting side effects. There are going to be heartbreaks. There are going to be broken pots. These pots, I think, are just a natural part of the ceramic life cycle. One of my friends is an archaeologist at Colonial Williamsburg, and he said something about ceramics that really made me feel better about my own tendencies to sort of drop and damage pieces in my own collection, not the Everson's collection. He told me that archaeologically speaking, the only successful pot is a broken pot. If you find a pot in the archaeological record that is unbroken, it was a pot that didn't get used and was unloved when it comes to its context. So the Everson is going to break pots from Louise's collection. I can tell you that it will become one of the greatest study collections known to man, and you can come visit me as the curator and get to handle that Warren Mackenzie tea bowl after somebody accidentally dropped it. It's just naturally going to happen. It means Louise can shop more for pieces for the Everson. But I wanted to leave you with one amazing thought, which is something that Louise sort of cooked up, and she kind of elucidated this in a podcast interview with Ben Carter, I believe, on Tales of a Red Clay Rambler. And that is that as she initially conceived it, she was thinking of donating all of the pieces to a restaurant and letting the restaurant just work through all of the pieces until maybe there was one last unbroken piece. And maybe that's the piece that goes into the Everson, or that goes into a museum. So when I am sort of old and gray and we've sort of burned through the Everson collection, I sort of make that solemn prayer that we will have, or vow that we will have some sort of vitrine with the very last piece of the Rosenfield collection. So this is happening on an expedited time frame. We should be open in summer of 2020. So make your trip, road trip, come out and see the Scarab Vase, and come experience the Rosenfield collection as it is meant to be experienced. So, thank you. Okay, Louise, why don't you come up and we can kind of take questions together if anyone has questions for either of us or both of us. We'll be happy to answer.
See, we told him everything.
Yeah.
Nothing more to ask.
How are they going to catalog everything for the restaurant to be able to use?
So Louise has done so much of the heavy lifting for us, and she has all of that documentation. So this is something that is happening with the architecture firm that we've chosen, and I'm sure, so they are so excited as a young firm. You don't get the chance to build something inside of IMP's second most pivotal building like every day when you're a young architect, but we're going to be hitting them with some interesting logistics that I don't think that they considered. In my heart of hearts, what I see happening with the cataloging is that maybe you're able, Louise is really excited that people be able to pick out their own wares that they then send back to the kitchen for the food to be plated on. I would love that when you get your receipt, you know how you have your coffee card and sometimes it's your like phone number, you type in your phone number and there on your receipt or emailed to you would be the websites of the working artists, and then you would be able to patronize those artists and start your pottery hoarding addiction and sort of end up like this one here.
The cafe, it is interesting because, you know, I don't know how many of you have been in the back end of a restaurant, but, you know, they sling those dishes around and all the dishes are the same size and the same shape, and they just, yeah. So the design firm will be inventing a new way to handle the dishes, and I'm just real excited about it.
And one other thing that I want to mention is we hired a revolutionary young architecture firm that I can't reveal the name of yet. You need to join the Everson's mailing list to get some of these announcements. But the jurying was just last Friday. This is 1 week after we selected the firm. And the firm that we selected overreached so far. I have never seen, I used to work for an architecture firm, and they just took the concept and went for it. And so they essentially proposed kind of a revolutionary way of the entire museum dealing with ceramics. And so one more thing is that this cafe is going to lead to a revolution that will affect the way that I show any ceramics, even from our collection in the rest of the museum. So what we are proposing is really sort of a revolution in the way that the public will understand and interact with ceramics as a medium.
Thanks for asking.
Is there anything in Dallas that shows this kind of?
No, Dallas is, like I said, it's a clay desert, and I thought, really, it was my fantasy. I thought that I would, in my dealings with, you know, people I come in contact with, that I'd meet some young, new restaurateur who would want to take this on. And in fact, there was a fellow who owned something called the Macaroni Grill. And so he's from Dallas, and he started a mentoring restaurant. So if you graduated from culinary school and you thought you wanted to open a restaurant, he made a place in a certain part of Dallas that he called the restaurant LTO, limited time only. And each chef would get to design their dishes, design the concept, design the menu, and then actually serve it for a period of several months. And then probably decide not to be a restaurateur, or maybe they were just like, oh, this is the life. So I thought, that might be a good partner. I could go and talk to them, but then the Everson happened, and I thought I would just kind of sit quietly and see what happened.
So to your point, I hope that everyone here in Wichita appreciates your own homegrown ceramic jewels. Earlier today, we got to go out to the Mark Art Center, and that collection from the Wichita Ceramics Nationals, all of the purchase prizes are at the Mark in this vault that you can see into. And from the 1950s and 1960s in particular, this is the sister collection of the Everson, and some of the pieces are better than the Everson's pieces. So if you have not spent time, and it's a study collection now, if you know the right people at the Mark, you can handle these pieces and get really up close and personal with them. And that's something that we're not allowed to do with the Ceramics Nationals collection at the Everson. So if you haven't made it there to really get up close and personal, I suggest it. Yes. So I would imagine they have pottery classes. I think their staff is listed, and they've got a sort of curator of collections there. I think drop them a line, and they want to be able to organize things. So wish we could just field trip right now. And I was making all of those sort of amazing demonstrative sounds as I was going through this incredible collection. So make it happen, and I don't know, take my card, and I would be happy to sort of help push if you encounter any pushback, but I don't think you will. I think this is a treasure that the Mark wants the people of Wichita to experience.
Well, this is kind of a goofy story. I started, my middle son had some problems with fine motor skills, and he had to go to physical therapy when he was 3 and when he was 4, and when he was 5, the physical therapist said, you got to get him into a clay class because that squishing clay will really help his fine motor skills. And I got to say, you can't read his writing. But I found a potter who would come to my house, and any kid in the neighborhood could bring $5, and we had a little class at the kitchen table, and I got to be the assistant. So eventually, they moved the clay class from my house to the clay center, and I went over there. I would drag my kids over there, and then they finally all dropped out of the class, and I was left. So I had to sign up for an adult class, and I was not, anybody who takes community classes can really understand. I was a hand builder at the time. It would take me 5 or 6 weeks, like a whole session, to finally get one pot made, and I would give it over to the high fire kiln, and it would come back with a brick in it because somebody hadn't scraped the shelves, and I was getting ready to just quit and go be a quilter. And I got a new teacher, and the new teacher said to me, if you don't learn to throw, I don't have anything to offer you. So I thought, okay, I'll learn to throw. And it was long and arduous and really hard for me. And he had a sale, and I went to his sale, and like, I was just gonna be nice. And I bought the first pot, which was just a little covered jar. And, you know, it was wood fired. I didn't understand that. It was just looked like garbage to me, but I was trying to be nice. But I think throwing clay, and I think there's some chemical in it that, you know, makes you develop an obsession and become addicted. And then that led to me going, you know, that teacher then introduced me to places where clay existed, you know, outside of this desert that I lived in. And that's what led to the collecting, is because suddenly I was finding professionals who made pots that, you know, it wasn't craft sale, you know, in the grass at the local park. It was more academic, and there was more thought behind the work, and that was it. That was long. Sorry.
Probably do one more if someone has one question.
Be brave. I will always have more ceramics.
Shopping.
Well, you know, all the details haven't been worked out. I don't know whether they want to just take what I have, or whether they want me to continue to be their personal shopper, and that it'll, you know, like, because my kids do not want the hundreds of pots. I mean, it's just like nowhere to go. So that's why I was thinking a restaurant. Yeah. And I imagine there's a few pots in the collection that are of museum quality that might be unusual enough that they won't be used in the cafe, that they might be accessioned by the museum. But I'm not counting on that, because that was never my goal when collecting these works. I've always collected things that I really wanted to use.
Well, maybe that's a place for people who don't have kids who collect. We can ship our things to the use to be used.
Hey,
Where pots go to.
make sure you have Garth's card.
Yes. So I will say that we have, so I was at Arizona State University before the Everson, where I took over for Peter Held as the curator of the amazing collection there. But we really sort of developed a fundraising model where we do adopt a lot of pots from people who know that it's time to send them somewhere, and then we've held online auctions and other auctions to get them into people's hands, and it's been amazing helping to find new homes for pots, and it helps continue our programs as well. Oh man, an avalanche. Yes.
But this whole exhibition is tied to empty bowls. Do you all ever get involved with empty bowls?
So we have empty bowls in Syracuse, and
We have empty bowls in Dallas, and yeah, I've helped by donating a lot of bowls and working at the event. Yeah.
indeed. Yes.
Will the menu have suggested pairings?
Great idea.
So one of my personal sort of favorite Garth ideas is that the founder of the Republic of Tea company, which actually makes the tea that I drink the most, is a Syracuse University alum, and there's no official connection between Syracuse University and the Everson, but I want to always have a selection of like 5 pots that Republic of Tea will curate a tea, a mix, a blend, or something from there that you exclusively get with that pot. And you have to get there like at a certain time at tea time to get your pot, and it will be sort of paired with other things. But I think we will also be doing events as well, where chefs will come in, work with farm-to-table produce from the Syracuse area. It's an amazing bread basket, but they also have to make the aesthetic decisions of the pots that they're going to serve them on and in. And so to your point, it's a total faux pas of a curator for another institution to just come in and speak about their own institution. This is a terrific show, and I don't get the chance as a curator to bring in as many contemporary artists as you see here. The cavalcade of artists who are coming to do demos and lectures at the programming, the Ulrich taking this on is Herculean. The selection of the artists is top-notch. You should be dragging everyone that you know into this exhibition. So, thank you.
Thank you for your time.